Hello and welcome back to Explosive Kolonisation. We are now in 1.3.1 and we have a few different mod changes. For one, and exactly what I'm launching here, is we have Nearty's Far Future Technologies installed, which brings in a few more fuels, a few more mechanics, and some heavy duty engines. The converse of this is I have actually taken out Umbra Space Industries' Alcubierre drive. And that's Rover Dude's Alcubierre drive. It's a brilliant mod and I really like it, but it's also quite hard to use, especially for me, because you have to calculate orbital velocities. So that's gone, and it's been a bit of wasted science in the last episodes, but some science leads to nowhere, so I'm pretty fine with that. Now, on top of that, we have also brought in something else. And one of the things that we've brought in is Barris, which is, again, is from Angel 125, where a lot of my mods come from, and it is building a rocket isn't simple. I believe that's what it stands for. And essentially it brings in a mechanic where things can break over time, they deteriorate over time. So those that have seen the old episodes of Carborundum Quest will know that the reason that I have so much money and I don't pay too much attention to it is because I harvested a fecal ton of carborundum in one of the missions, and it gave me so much money that I didn't have to worry about it again. Now, what you can see on screen here, it couples in with a Barris. Parts can break, but you can also spend science or money and make them better, and that's where this little window's gone. And what I've actually done is I have gone through a lot of my regular use crafts or things that are out there already, and I've loaded them in, and I've used the funds cost here and spent money to make the parts more reliable. Now, I had 1.2 trillion-ish credits, and they are now all spent. So I now need missions to actually get money to do different things. So I've actually gone and got proper missions for the first time in ages, and I need to do them. So on with the show. As you can see, we have the Infinity here. The Infinity is going to be sent out to Minmus to refuel before going out to Dres. And one of my missions was to send people and to orbit them around the moon and around Minmus. So now we have a familiar launcher to anybody that's seen the last couple of episodes. I've stripped it down, there's no KISS parts on this, it is literally going to the moon. And the reason I've kept in the whole launch is because this is a bit of a different launch profile that not a lot of people use. I'm literally going straight up, I'm not entering orbit, I am going straight to the moon. So the best bit behind this is you wait until the moon's a little bit behind you, probably 25 degrees or so, and you burn straight up. And there we go, one straight encounter for the moon. Now I have to enter orbit, so I'm setting a waypoint to enter orbit, and then I'm literally going to, as soon as I'm in and the contract has registered that part, I'm going to burn from there out to Minmus. But it's interacting, as you can see, with my timings for the Infinity. So I'm sort of jumping between the two of them. And I thought I'd keep this in, just a lot of people sort of might not realise how much is going on at the one time when I'm doing certain things. So there we go, we have entered, we have managed to achieve our part in the contract for the flyby and the entering the orbit of the moon. So we head on out to Minmus. And then a quick jump after a burn. So we've got all that sorted, we sort out our waypoint and then we jump across to the Infinity again. And we get it into orbit of Minmus. And now this little jumping that you can see here, that isn't an edit, that is literally every time I hit time warp. It only occasionally happens, but it'll jump you away around the orbit, and it happens with Minmus a lot. So that's what happened there, is it jumped me and I decided to exploit it so that I got a flatter place to land. But all of that was at 4 times time acceleration, and it happened just the way it did. So we slow down and we bring ourselves down onto the ground? The ice cap? I don't know. Onto the cheesecake ball. So there we go, we're on the floor. We set out the mining rig and we are going to refuel the liquid hydrogen and mainly our fusion pellets. We need fusion pellets for the scrap heap station. It doesn't have any, it's why I haven't actually moved it yet, because it needs that for its engines. So that's part of the refueling for the scrap heap. And from there we are back to our little lander. We enter orbit and we leave again. Nice and simple. We get back to Kerbal, and now part of this contract is, it says safely, and a lot of people realise that means you cannot knock out your passengers with G-forces. So I come in a little too heavy and I have to adjust my orbit, because normally your Kerbals can take it but obviously your passengers can't. So I don't want anyone knocked out, so I have to make this nice and soft. And because I mess up and I don't have this on a prograde setting, I actually skim over the atmosphere, so instead of slowing me down and dropping me into the floor, it puts me on a full loop. So I invert and pull my nose in to try and keep myself in the atmosphere, but it's too late. I try and use the brakes to slow myself down and lose one of the brakes, and then I'm out of the atmosphere. So I slam it into reverse, put the thrusters on, and then just try and control my landing so that I'm landing on a piece of ground. I've got no chance of getting back to the KSC, and I wasn't expecting to. I don't mind eating the costs to this launcher, just because of how I'm bringing it back in for landing. So here we go, keeping an eye on the G-meter the entire way down, and then start getting worried because I'm herring into the ground, so the brakes go up. I tilt back, I manage to get the glide but I'm getting too close, so out come the chutes. And there we go, we have a safe landing, and when we recover we manage to get the science and the contract is awarded. So out to Juno, we have managed to make some things. We have a rocket here, which is to do with another contract. I have a contract to take some recon, to put a recon piece in orbit and to take some readings. So the rocket is built, and then this is one of the new parts that has come from, oh, I'm going to get into trouble, I think it's in a Pathfinder mod. It's in one of Angel 125's mods. I think it's Pathfinder. In fact, I'm sure it is now that I'm saying this. And this is a launch pad, which almost seems like it was perfect. It was case built for me after some of the issues I've been having. But yeah, we have this beautiful launch pad, so we hook it up, we use our equipment. It takes some all different things to get it. I think it's equipment and possibly possibly concrete or something like that. And then we jump over to the Eve base. We go, hi! There is another module, a ranch module. And we're looking for a screwdriver. We finally find the screwdriver. And we go out to get this thing built up. Now, I don't have all of the equipment to get this sort of done right, so I had to wait a little bit. So once I get this clipped on, we get it built. We don't have the equipment, so we have to do some little facility adjustment to get what we need, which is fine. This happens all the time and it's not a big problem. And it's good because it gives me a chance to explore more of what Pathfinder does. I've been fairly limited in what I use it for, and this is a really good way of figuring out what you can do with it. But after a short amount of time and some reconfiguring and looking at all of this stuff, we eventually managed to get it sorted so that we can actually inflate the ranch module. So a little bit of time warping here and there. And there we go, we have our first ranch module. Now, I still don't exactly understand everything this does. I know it gives bonuses to some of your converters and things. But we do a quick rename of the base. And there we go. So we have an even more permanent base on Eve. Partly because we can't leave, but less said about that the better. So, over to Juno. And a lot of people will recognise me doing this, trying to free up a bit of space. Now, one of the things is, now that I've upgraded to 131, I am getting a lot better frame rates. The Eve base is running 15 to 20. The Juno base was actually running 25 frames a second, which is really smooth for me. So that was quite nice. And at one point I got 60. I was absolutely astounded. And that's pretty much double what I've been getting, which puts the avatar into context when I say that I'm still getting 2 frames a second with that. But we try and release this rocket, and unfortunately the legs detonate. So we are forced to throw it up into orbit fairly early, and I really didn't want to do this. So I go for it. I accounted on launching this, you know, properly in the right place. But we go for it anyway and see if we can get it into the right orbit. And obviously we can. And strangely enough, I managed to get really close. But unfortunately, yeah, I ran out of fuel. And I ran out of fuel so close, it was really disappointing. But that wouldn't have mattered, because it turned out I needed 2 recon readings, and these recon probes need to be reset by a Kerbal between readings. So we haven't passed the contract regardless. So we need to do it again. So, back out to Eve we go. And we're doing a little bit of base modification. As you can see here, I've pulled the battery off because I thought it was hindering the base being on the ground, which I think it was. But yeah, this is starting to get kind of annoying. Just, it's messing with my OCD. So we do a little bit of reorganisation. We also bring in our drilling rig and actually hook it up through pipes, so that everything is one ship. Still getting good times with that all hooked together though. And fast forward in a little while on Juno, and we have our next rocket attempt. So this is off the actual pad. And we get everything set up, we get it all fueled. God damn it! The bloody thing explodes. The pad explodes. Nah, saw that. Hard crash the desktop and reset. So once we've restarted, look, there's a rocket there! And I retract the gear, because it was the gear that contacted. And there we go. So we have a rocket, we release it, we then extend the gear, and nothing explodes. So that'll do, we have the ability to send this into orbit. So time for a launch. Now we get it into a fairly good place, and look at that launch pad heat up, that terrified me, but nothing exploded. And away we go. We're doing not too bad. So I thought I'd keep this all in because it's just, well, it's not often you get to launch a rocket from the surface of another planet that was built on that planet. I quite like extraplanetary launch pads just for this. I think it is a fantastic mod. So out we go. And this is actually where I figure out my problem with needing more than one recon unit to do this. But we get it into a stable orbit, so it meets part of the contract. Now, people are looking at this going, that's a Mark II spaceplane. He never uses the Mark II parts. Well, I occasionally played about with them earlier, but I like OPT spaceplane. However, as I've said, we have many contracts. And one of them is for an MRS part, and all it requires is to be taken up to a high altitude and at a certain speed. It doesn't need ignited or anything like this. So I build this little tiny plane, which is fairly cheap, and just punt it up to high atmosphere. It doesn't need to go into orbit. And then we bring it down because we don't manage to get the correct speed. I was actually going too fast. And essentially I just hop it up and down a couple of times until I manage to pass through the correct altitude at the correct speed with the part. And that is all that is required. An altitude and a speed. So as you can see, throwing out the brake and trying to control my velocity. And on the next attempt, I'm pulling it back to try and slow down even though there's not much atmosphere. But we get to the correct altitude, the correct speed, we're flying and all that jazz. So we have completed the contract. So we head back to the KSC, and I run out of fuel on the way back. Yeah, ain't that the way. So I'm trying to pick up some speed here just to keep the glide going well and get a smooth landing, and I realise I've gone too steep. So eject, and then, oh god, saved it. So both of our Kerbals are alive. Only just. Talk about feet from death. But yep, we managed to survive that. We have the contract completed, so losing the part didn't matter. And then we are out to Eve, and we have built something interesting. Now, there is a glitch with these launch pads where they don't have to be assembled, and I can't assemble them because I don't have enough equipment on Eve. So, you can still use them, you just can't assemble them. And I know it's cheaty, but I don't care. It's within the game mechanics I have at the moment, so I've done it. So, the problem is I don't have equipment, and I need... oh, I've forgotten what you call them. I need rare minerals and exotic minerals or something like that. So this has been built to go and get them. So, well, I think it looks like a sand crawler a bit. So, this is the sand crawler. And out we go exploring. I have little detectors on the front. And I look for a little while and then remember that I have ScanSat installed. So we whip over to using ScanSat to give us a rough location of the minerals. And we head out and we're trying to go up a hill, and obviously this is a fairly heavy beast and it's on Eve, so it's even heavier. But we get out there and we eventually get to a point where we've got the minerals, but we need to find a flat-ish area. So yeah, this will do. Out with the landing struts, out with the drills, and get drilling. And then this is where I realised that I need to prospect the ground to be able to refine the minerals. And oh god, yeah, it goes horribly wrong. So I realised I need something else, and I basically design a slightly different version of this. Now I don't have any money, so I can't throw these things out at the KSC and test them anymore. So when they're built on planet, they are built on planet. So after a long walk with one of our engineers, because we need an engineer, we get him back so that we can build a new one. Back on Juna, we build one of the old versions because it was set, the build time was set up before I realised that it was slightly broken. But it still has its uses, and I have equipment here so I can reconfigure the habitat on the sand crawler so that it can actually work as a geology lab. So that's not too big a problem. So we go through, we transfer some personnel, we make sure that this has a pilot and a scientist to run the geology lab and an engineer, because that's why it's got parts on the side of it for building separate things, so that I can set up a little small base for grabbing these minerals. So we are working. It is brilliant, and I completely forget that Juna has a lower gravity and roll the thing in a second. But look, we got it back. So, we decide to go exploring. And then realise we don't have any uranium like the other one does, so this will be interesting. But it'll still work. So we take a little trip over the hills. Hey, look how fast this thing goes. Hey! Jumps and stability, and don't roll it, don't roll it. Yeah, we're doing alright. Little jumps. So, we turn on the scanner, and I know from launching one of the probes and that we are... oh god! Oh no! Why? Why? The humanity. We're on the wheels at least. So, hey, look! A survivor! So, back to the craft. And once we dock, we realise that... get in! There we go. So we realise we have 3 crew members, which is what we're left with. Haha! We have survivors. So I try and recover what I can, because why not? And look at how useful that is. And actually, looking at this is a point where I went, I've got quite a good idea for this is just a flatbed of what I can do with the craft. So that's kind of useful. I have a bit of problems attaching, but we managed to get there. Now, what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by my horrible driving skills is that there is exotic minerals and the other one, the things that I need to the south. So I know that fairly close to the south is another biome where I can grab the stuff. So even though I'm a really bad pilot, I have learned a couple of things from this. I know what the stuff is that I need. I know that this is a fairly good vehicle, and smashing the stuff in the centre has given me a good idea for what I want to do with it for the future. So it's not been a particularly bad thing. Now while that was going on, I ran out of life support, or was running low on the one on Eve. I had 150 odd days and there was a while between these cuts. But we bring that back down, and at the same time we launch another one. This is the revised version. So once we get it up the hill, we decide to actually put out the third part that's been put into Pathfinder, and this is... Yes, I looked up in a wiki. So the part that I'm putting in is the mass driver. As you can see here, here's the surface mounted one, and it looks awesome. And again, I've not experimented with this stuff because I'm doing all my experimentation in the same save. Skunkworks is for playing about, but this is all happening at the same time. So, I don't really know what it does. All I know now is that it sucks up a lot of power. So, from that, we're back on Juna, and we are launching another craft into orbit. This time a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, as you can tell by the vector engines at the bottom of this one. And we have our 2 recon things, and we're going for finalising yet another mission. Because I need credits. So that's what this is all about. I'm trying to build back. I now have 250,000 credits, and that is brilliant. Now, whilst the avatar does a little bit of a correction burn at 2 frames a second, I thought I would expound on what else I'm going to be doing. Now, I want to get the avatar to Lathe in the next episode, but it still has a correction burn to do in the Julian system to decelerate and then try and get down to Lathe. Whilst that's happening, I would also like to expand some of the bases and correct some of the issues that are going on with them. I am learning more and more about the Pathfinder system as it's going on. I am not a master of it, I just really like it. And I want to get things more streamlined to how the Pathfinder runs, so running off the energy within the habitats that come within it, as opposed to having external generators and things. It'll make it run a little bit smoother, and I've already noticed from what I've done that it seems to lower the demand on the frames per second from the physics engine. So that's where we're sort of heading. I'm going to do a little bit, and I won't show most of it, but I may show the occasional thing. If I come up with new crafts, as opposed to just the big sand cats that I'm using at the moment, the sand crawlers, then I may show them, but don't be surprised if I load into a base and it looks a lot different, because there will be a lot of changes and it takes a bit of a while. So that's us for this particular episode. We have the course correction on the avatar, we have had the bases massively changed in form and function, and we have a little bit more adjusting to do with the avatar, as you can see, before we get it into hit Tylo, which has already been done, but yeah, it took so long, there's just no real point. So if you've enjoyed this, again, like and subscribe and comment. Subscribing and liking is not too big a thing, but I like seeing the comments. It's nice to know what people think, good or bad, but just not mean, because people have feelings, you know. But yeah, comments are always nice to read, regardless of which way or the other, whether it's on the Kerbal forums, whether it's on Reddit, or just on the actual YouTube. It's nice to see. So, I shall see you for the next episode. But at the moment, I'm going to go out and play in the snow, because it is gloriously white here in Finland.